Okay, so now we're going to go over the spec file for the address book. Okay, now this is going to be a very, very quick video, and this is actually just going to show you that um, there are in fact three spec files, so three test files for uh, the address book. We'll just go over those really fast, and then we'll go ahead and run the tests and see that they all pass. So this is a supplemental video to the address book demo that I created earlier. All right, so again, the first thing that we'll go ahead and look at is the entry. Now this, what it's going to do is it just takes a look at that entry method. It's going to build an entry, so the at entry equals entry.new, and then it's just going to populate that with a value. So the name that I'm looking for is Julius Caesar. The phone number is 555-555-5555, and the email is hailbrutus@rome.com. Okay, so the first test that it does is it is looking for the return of an entry, or that the entry is actually being placed in there. So you are going to look and see if the entry name is equal to Julius Caesar. Then it's going to take a look and see if the phone number is equal to the phone number we passed in, and the email address is equal to hailbrutus@rome.com. All right, so let's go ahead and run that real fast. So we remember when we run our RSpec, it's bundle exec or execute the RSpec, and then we're going to make this a very specific RSpec. So we're going to actually run spec for entry spec.rb. Okay, and it should run three tests, so three examples, returns the name of the entry, returns the phone number of the entry, and returns the email address of the entry. Three examples, 0 failures, and didn't take very long to run. All right, so let's go ahead and clear the screen, move on to the next. The address book, now this one was slightly more complicated, but again, it just runs the basic test. So it's going to create a subject, and that subject is going to be called book, and that is basically just a new address book. And it's going to check and see if we can create an entry manually. Now, it says create an entry manually, but again, to get user input, to mock up user input for a test file makes it very, very difficult. So what we're doing is we're actually just testing the skeleton, or the back methods behind the manual entry. Now, the manual entry just says, hey, look, do this. And so we're actually just testing the do this method. So for this particular method, we're testing the add entry. And again, we're passing in three junk values. Jake is the name, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 is the number, and T at t.com. And we're expecting the book size to equal 1 at this point, because remember, book is equal to addressbook.new. And as soon as we pass in that address book, or that new entry, it should then equal 1. So let's go ahead and take a look at that. Or we'll go through the rest of these, and then we'll take a look at that. The next one is it should find entry in the address book. Now remember, this is the search method. So basically we're going to add that new entry, so book.add, and again it's that same Jake 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 and t at t.com. And then we are expecting that when we search for Jake, it should return true. And then finally, we are testing the import method from the CSV file. Now what this does is it should increase the address book by the size of the number of entries or the lines in that CSV file. Now if we remember, the CSV file that we passed in was addresses.csv, and it had 4 files in it. So we're expecting the book size to be 4, and then I just did a couple of quick name searches. The first was I searched for Rich, and the second I searched for Joe, and both of those should be true. All right, so remember, the address book had several methods that were actually built into it, but the main methods were add an entry, search for files, and to import files. Now the view all entries isn't really tested here because that's just displayed. It's just a display method, a little bit difficult to test for. However, should we go in and run the file manually, we can actually see all of those entries. Remember, there are a whole lot of user inputs that are required for that view entries, that view all entries. And again, mocking those user inputs into a test file is extremely difficult, if not impossible. And so what we're going to do then is just test to make sure that those entries are actually in the address book, because that's the important part of this. So we're testing these background methods. We are testing the size method as well. The rest of these methods are simply for manual user input. Okay, so that is the address book. So let's go ahead and run that test method really fast. So again, we're running bundle, but this time we're doing the address book spec. We run it. It runs 3 tests. Should it add an entry to the address book? And it does. Should display an entry if name found? It does. And should increase the address book size by the number of entries? And it does. And that test, remember, also tests to make sure that those names are found in the address book. All right, so clear the screen one more time, and we'll take a look at the menu controller. Now again, the menu controller is a little bit different because here we are actually trying to test that the menu controller actually takes user input. Now, as I said, this is really, really strange. When it's looking for user input, it's basically just looking to see, hey, can I accept a number? Or hey, can I accept an argument? And so what I did is I built a subject, and the subject again is called session. Now I just use session because it's an address book session. And I am building a new menu controller. Again, this is a class, so I have to build into the class. So I build a menu controller object, and I'm calling that object session. Now, before we run these tests, we have to expect session to receive a method called selection, and that's actually the method. If we take a look at that menu controller real fast, the menu controller has that method called selection. Now, selection is looking for an argument, a parameter to be passed in. Now, that argument can either be the number 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5. And notice all of those arguments are integers. So this test method is looking to make sure that whatever is passed in is an instance of integer. And it has to be an instance of integer or it fails the test. Okay, so now we go and we actually look at the tests themselves. Now, the context of the text said it should respond to user selections. Now, the first test is it responds to view all entries. Now, if we remember that view all entries selection was number 1, so it should respond to 1. Now, again, it's just checking to see if it's an integer, and as long as it's an integer, it says, hey, look, that's actually an integer, so let's do it. And that's pretty much what each of these does, is each of these tests, whether it be for view, create, search, import, and exit, it is testing to see if that menu controller value is an integer. So if we run that real fast, and again we are running the menu controller spec, as you can see, well, whoops, hold on a second, let me actually clear this real fast. Remember, it's looking for us to do something, actually do something, not mock do something. So it was waiting for this. And that's the problem with waiting for user input, is that it doesn't know what to do. The test doesn't know what to do with user input, actual user input. So we have to mock up user input into this test to say, hey, look, this is what we expect the user to do. If it doesn't do this, it doesn't work. So it will actually fail. Okay, so now that I've cleared that, let's try that one more time. As you can see, responds to view all entries, create an entry, search, import, and exit. 5 examples, 0 failures, and there we go. Again, questions, please place them in the forum, and I will be happy to answer them as soon as possible.